One of my earliest memories is of sitting on the front porch swing of our Amarillo home with my father, listening to the coyotes in the distance. I was very young at the time, but the combination of fear associated with the howling coyotes, the calm and safety of my father's presence, and the warmth and beauty of a summer night created a powerful emotional cocktail which cemented this event into my memory. I'm certain it must have happened more than once, but my memory is of one particular occasion which I can only assume to be the first I was old enough to recall. Linking experience to emotion is a primary means by which episodic memories, and indeed other types of memory as well, are encoded. My interests are varied, but a great many of them are centered around expression. As we will cover later, many of them speak to my rather balanced preferences on multiple intelligence tests. However, my affinity for creativity may also be linked to semantic memory, as it has been proposed to be the foundation for imagination and creativity. One could say that my interest in music indicated a musical type of intelligence. Or does my love of writing indicate a linguistic type? Does my love of art speak to a spatial intelligence? Or my interest in scuba, could it be seen as an indicator of my naturalistic tendencies? Of course, my interest in politics and civil liberties might point toward an intrapersonal intelligence. In any case, the very act of analyzing what I think and why I might think it is an act of metacognition, which I engage in often, coupled with my love of philosophy. I tend to reject any of the accepted 8 intelligence types as being definitive of my style of learning, but we'll cover that more later. Generally, my schedule during the week doesn't leave a lot of time for personal enjoyment. It requires quite a lot of determination and motivation to maintain my regimen. Luckily, generally I enjoy my job and my schoolwork, so that isn't that difficult. Occasionally, though, I feel like I'm missing important time in my children's lives, and I'll take a break from school. In general, I find that self-determination theory pretty well explains how I gather motivation. However, whereas the formal theory describes these motivating factors as autonomy, relatedness, and competence, I prefer Daniel Pink's reframing of autonomy, mastery, and purpose. In fact, a plaque displaying these 3 words hangs in my office. When I was younger, I would often find myself irritated by many things, and easily frustrated. This may be due to an unstable environment, which I discuss later. However, I've gradually learned to control this, possibly due to my tendency toward metacognition, associated with my intrapersonal leanings. Through the process of thinking about my thinking and trying to understand my own actions, I've been able to whittle down my hot buttons to a few issues which I deem worthy of such a reaction. I usually score pretty evenly in many areas of multiple intelligence type tests. None of them really seemed to suit me, though, until I discovered one in particular. Gardner originally proposed 7 types of intelligence. He later considered that he should add 3 more: the naturalistic, the spiritualistic, and the existential intelligences. Gardner successfully integrated the naturalistic type and later rejected the spiritualistic type, but he continued to struggle with the criteria for the existentialist type intelligence. This last type, although not officially included in the theory, is the type with which I most strongly identify. Existentialist thinkers are said to be concerned or even preoccupied with the big questions in life, those which arise from a need to explore who, what, and why we are at a fundamental level, with the search for meaning, as it were. When I was in first grade, our teacher gave us a class assignment to write a short poem about anything we wanted. I chose to write about the challenge of a seed becoming a flower. Incidentally, I ended up winning a district-wide poetry contest which I didn't even know I had entered. This was the first time in my life I realized I really loved to write, and also that I tended to think of things on a different plane than most people, often using analogy and metaphor to condense complex problems into relatable ones. I'm not even sure I realized at the time that my short poem was symbolic of the difficulty we all face in growing to be something more than we are, but my teacher certainly did. It could easily be said that the positive experience of winning and the praise that accompanied it served as a reinforcement for my writing, and perhaps is even the reason that I derive joy from it today. The first time in my life I recall feeling real loss, along with fear and instability and confusion, was when I was 9 years old and I discovered that my parents were divorcing. Had the situation been handled appropriately and discussed with my sister and I in an attempt to explain the circumstances, it may not have been so troubling. As it stands, we were told nothing until we were picked up from school by my mother, and all of a sudden lived in a hotel room. We went from having what we thought was a perfect family to having a broken, confusing, tumultuous family in a matter of a school day. The wave of emotions made this impossible for me to forget. After this, my mother and sister and I moved around a lot, and it seemed like every time I would get comfortable somewhere, we would pull up stakes and move. This taught me to distrust happiness and thrive in a chaotic environment, as well as having a significant impact on my education due to the instability.